Atlanta heads to Indianapolis looking to maintain its momentum, but the Colts can be a bit of a tricky opponent. How do the Falcons get it done? We'll talk about it next on AJC Falcons News Now.
This is AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Brandon Adams and former Atlanta Falcon Chuck Smith.
And happy Friday, everyone, and welcome into AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. My name is Brandon Adams. This is the former Atlanta Falcon Chuck Smith, and you heard me say it a moment ago. I think tricky is an interesting word to use to describe Indianapolis. Be very careful if you're Atlanta on the road here against this AFC South opponent. This might be a little better team than some Falcons fans give it credit for.
Well, I think they are. A lot of Falcon fans aren't familiar because we rarely play the AFC South, particularly the Indianapolis Colts. This team is young, and especially now with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. This team is young. I think they're hungry, and I think they're built correctly. So the Falcons better go in there and show them, respect, but also come out fast.
I think one thing is true, that the mindset that Atlanta's trying to create for this game certainly helps it. We'll talk about what Julio Jones said about that coming up in just a moment. Before we get to any of that, though, as I said before, let me remind you that it is AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Miller Lite tastes great. It's just 96 calories. It's the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. So if you're getting ready to watch some football at any point in time this weekend, including the Dirty Birds on Sunday, Miller Lite's a great choice there in that regard. Now, speaking of that mindset that Atlanta brings to the table, I thought Julio Jones, when he met with the reporters this week, said something very interesting. Atlanta was maybe motivated on Sunday night because of the fact that it had gotten beaten so badly by Minnesota in Week 1. And now you have to show that you can handle the success. You have to show that you can go out there and remain just as motivated as you might have been against the Eagles after hearing for a week that, hey, maybe Atlanta's in better shape than we thought. Maybe things are okay for the Falcons. Well, Julio Jones had a very interesting description, I thought, for the mindset that he wants to see Atlanta approach this game at Indianapolis on Sunday. I think if you're a Falcons fan, you'll like this from Julio. Here's what he had to say this week.
Nah, you got to stay hungry. You got to learn how to deal with success and handle success. Every day we just got to keep working. The hay is never in the barn. It's just that mentality. You just got to keep coming out here. You can't be satisfied with one win. You can't go 1-15. 15, whatever. So it's we don't want to do that. So that's not the mentality. It's handle success, on to the next, keep working every day, get better and better.
I think hungry is a really interesting word there, Chuck, because obviously that's what you got to do. It was probably easy to find that motivation on Sunday because the Falcons heard for a week that this was a disaster season. There were people writing them off. There were people writing off Dan Quinn personally. And, going out there and playing for your coach, going out there and playing for yourself against Philadelphia, easy to do. Now, this is a professional football team, but still motivation helps. And Julio Jones says, hey, we've got to find that within ourselves to stay just as hungry going into Lucas Oil Stadium on Sunday, if that's still what it's called, just as hungry in that venue as we were in Mercedes-Benz Stadium this past Sunday.
Yeah, I like that what Julio said. But you know what I read into that a little bit, Brandon? We got some young guys now. They were celebrating as a big game. And I always had this saying, the high is high and the low is low. So the high was really high. Yeah. But if you don't get yourself ready, the low can be even lower because you're still on that high. Yeah. And so what I hear from Julio is that we got to stay hungry. And after the game, everybody celebrating. I saw them. They were kicking it like they was at the old Club 112. And I'm looking at the locker room like we had won the Super Bowl. But again, I like what Julio does, but that's kind of a nice little shot saying, hey, guys, that was just one win. Let's keep it going.
Well, in defense, I did think it was a big win on Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles, so I don't mind a little bit of celebration there. But what I also think is interesting about Julio here is that this is such a very different attitude than you would see from a lot of wide receivers around the league. He's talking about staying hungry, and he's talking about really a challenge to his team, but he's not doing it with a lot of histrionics and a lot of
over the top
stuff. He's just
cliches.
Exactly, Chuck. He's just such a business-like guy, and I would imagine that if you're a Falcons player in that locker room, following his lead, Ryan would be something the same way. I'm sure Grady Jarrett for the defensive side of the ball is probably very, very much the same way. But following that lead, to me, does not seem like all that difficult of a thing to do because he backs up the play on the field. He's not a diva wide receiver, and yet seemingly he's got his perspective and priorities in the right place going towards the Colts on Sunday.
Right. Every team needs that. And a good example is I've seen guys come out and talk the talk and walk the walk, but had no credibility. You have to have had a great game, or you have to be that guy to talk about talking the talk. But it's really important for guys like Julio to step up. because you talked about last week about Matt Ryan, right? Matt Ryan not having that, necessarily being that kind of leader.
Yeah.
Am I right? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Was that kind of what you said?
Certainly these are different kind of guys in terms of the energy they bring. Different than some guys around the league. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that. We need a leader like this. You need a leader. Then you need somebody also to crack the whip. I'm a big believer in that. You got the mellow, kind of guy, and that's Jesse Tuggle was kind of like our, hey man, let's get it going. And I was kind of like let's go. Bust your hands on the wall. Let's go. We about that action. Let's go.
Those of us that watch the AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite, it's not hard for us to believe that would be Chuck's mentality in the locker room. We see that on this show turned down a few notches every Monday and Friday, so I can only imagine what it would have been like back when it was turned up to the full volume back when you were playing the game.
Yeah, it really was. And I was more of the floor kind of guy. I was the infantry. Well, I was the guy who was on the floor. I was doing the dirty work. Jesse was the general.
That's good to hear. Well, that's nice. John Hochstedt, I hope I pronounced that correctly, John, in our Facebook comment section says, humble and hungry, well said. And, I said this before, we're going to get more into the Colts in just a moment, but, that kind of mentality going in this game, because really, I think you can make a case, even though Philadelphia is more of a name brand opponent, and for the Falcons in particular, the Eagles had been more of a nemesis in previous years. You can make a case that it's a road game like this because you're probably going to find yourself 3 or 4 of these road wins at some point in time on your schedule. If you want to build a playoff resume by the time the 16 games are done, you can make a case that Atlanta needs the Indianapolis game more than it needed Philadelphia on Sunday night. Even though the hype was around the NBC telecast, I'm not so sure that regardless of the outcome against Philadelphia, Atlanta doesn't need this game more because it's a winnable road game, and you don't get but a few of those on your schedule each year.
And the Falcons should win this game. Simply, you're the better team. You have better players. You got Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. You got Marlon Mack, the running back who came out of nowhere, might not even play, right? You got Darius Leonard who probably won't play. They're not at their best. The simple reason, you're the better team.
Yeah.
So if Atlanta loses this game, we talked about the high being high against Philly. If Atlanta were not to come out of this game without a win, the low would be lower. And that's the example I gave earlier. So
that's exactly right. We'll get a few more comments, then we'll hear from Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan on what it's going to take against Indianapolis on Sunday. Angelia McGill says Atlanta has what it takes. We just need to tweak some things from last week, go forward, fast, hungry, focused, rise up, Angelia says. And if you listen to what's been coming out of Flowery Branch, and obviously DeOrlando led better the entire team at the AJC, have been covering that this week. If you listen to that theme coming out of Flowery Branch this week, there has been so much said of what you do need to tighten up. We'll talk about turnovers, for instance, on this show today, and Matt Ryan's role in adding to that turnover list in a way that you might not expect from him at the start of the season. But in terms of kind of tightening up some things, tweaking some things, that has definitely been a big topic of conversation in Flowery Branch this week.
Yeah, it has, and it's been the same kind of conversation we've had the last couple of years. Red zone, Matt Ryan, red zone. I think that's one of the things they talked about, being more efficient in the red zone. They put in the, extra period, working on some plays and different things from that standpoint. But another thing they got to focus on is running the ball. I mean, Ito Smith and Devontae Freeman, there's got to be some yards there. You've got to be a little more effective because there's going to be a day when Julio or none of the receivers are effective. Then you want your running game to kind of, pull you up a little bit. So that's one of the things I'd like to see better. But I'd also like to see Kenyon Barner and the special teams get some yards that you don't expect. You know what I mean? Take a little pressure off the offense having to go the distance. Maybe special teams somewhere in there, which is usually lost conversation. They need to help the offense, give them a little shorter field. DJ
White on our Facebook comment section. He's ready for the game against the Colts on Sunday. Blake Robinson says, rise up. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to you as well, Blake. Johnny McKee says, go Falcons, rise up. So there's a lot of excitement in our conversation right now, including Richard Rivera, who says, let's keep on winning, boys. And, different people think different things with the idea of momentum, but certainly to follow up a big win last week with a win on Sunday against Indianapolis, that would get not only Falcons fans feeling good, I think the coaches and players themselves would feel like they would be in a good position. We're going to talk later on about New Orleans, your chief competition, NFC South, playing for certainly a number of weeks now without Drew Brees. What Atlanta can do over that stretch while Brees is not playing for the Saints, I think that's going to be crucial. And from that standpoint, I think Richard's bringing up a really good point in our comment section.
Oh, he makes a great point because who do we have next? The Titans, right? The Titans who absolutely, they can't throw the ball. Mariota's an average quarterback. So you look at the Falcons, they should take care of these next 2 games. Then you got a chance to kind of go on a roll. Momentum is huge because when you win games, practice is better. You know what I'm saying? The ride to home is better. The wife treats you better. The girlfriend treats you better. The kids even show you more love. It is literally everything is like night and day. I mean, to Falcons, you take care of these next couple games, you're rolling because, like you said, New Orleans, as we'll talk about later, got some problems.
One more comment here. Joyce Minshew-Taylor says, yep, stay hungry, shouting out what Julio said a little earlier. Falcons look good on Sunday night. Let's keep the W's going one game at a time. Love my Falcons. Go Falcons. So it's nice to see Falcons fans as excited as they are for the game on Sunday. Let's talk about that opponent here for a moment. It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. As I said before, Miller Lite is the original light beer and the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons, and a great choice for your tailgate, no matter where you may be getting together to watch the game on Sunday. Kind of an impromptu tailgate on your patio, your front porch, something like that. Hope you enjoy some Miller Lite here this weekend. Matt Ryan touched on something that you said a little earlier, which is, weirdly, Indianapolis is a team that Falcons fans, at least against their favorite team, don't get to see a whole lot. And Ryan said because of the lack of familiarity with the opponent, it makes for a little bit of a busier week for Atlanta kind of getting up to speed. Here's what Matt Ryan said about that earlier this week.
We got a lot of work to do for an opponent we don't see, all that often. A lot of film study and meeting time needs to be productive, but I thought all in all for us on a Wednesday was a good start.
The other thing that Ryan talked about for a moment, and Chuck, I want to get a comment from you after this, is that the one thing, and you see on your screen there, Jacoby Brissett, the new Colts quarterback, the one thing that virtually everyone knows about Indianapolis is, well, this is a team that had the weird retirement story of Andrew Luck right before the start of the season, and now Atlanta is playing a quarterback different than the one you would have expected to play. You thought you'd be facing Luck if you want to go back to the offseason. Now you're facing Brissett, who put up some big numbers playing at North Carolina State, now finds himself in the role of starting quarterback with Luck being gone. And for what it's worth, Ryan talked about his feelings when he first heard about Luck's retirement. Here is what Ryan also said about Andrew Luck not being in this game on Sunday.
I was in touch with him after he retired and just wished him the best moving forward. And, I'm happy for him. I hope he's able to, find some comfort, find some peace in retirement and get back to feeling good. It's hard when you're nicked up and you're grinding through those things. It's tough on you. And so I totally respect him for what he's done. And throughout his career, he had an unbelievable career. And I hope he's getting to a good space.
Here's the point I want to make, and Chuck, I want your response to this. And if you're a Falcons fan, I want you to gather close to your screen. I want you to listen very carefully to my opinion on this. Be careful that you don't assume that Indianapolis is no longer a dangerous opponent just because they don't have Andrew Luck. Obviously, I think that Brissett represents a drop-off in the quarterback play compared to what Luck would have provided. Luck, when he was healthy, was one of the dangerous quarterbacks in this league. But Indianapolis, playing in its own stadium, I believe remains an incredibly dangerous game for the Falcons, even apart from this. You're talking about a team that runs the football well. We'll hear Frank Reich on that in a moment. Between T.Y. Hilton and Deion Kane, the impressive guy at Clemson, this is not a bad crop of wide receivers as well. Quentin Nelson provides a little toughness at offensive line before you even get to the defensive side of the ball. I don't want Falcons fans to assume that Indianapolis is now a pushover because of the Luck retirement. I don't think that's the case.
No, that's not the case. And you just said what I was about to follow up on, Quentin Nelson. See, the strength of this team is the offensive line. Mm-hmm. This is a team that wants to run the ball. They want to slow the game down. They want to grind it up. So even when they had Andrew Luck, remember, this was a running team last year. They led the league in rushing.
Yeah.
So as much as we're talking about Andrew Luck, even if he would have came back, they were going to run the ball. T.Y. Hilton is just an okay receiver. This isn't a great receiving corps. This team is built on slug you in the face, grind you out, throw some play-action pass in there, win at the game, so it helps Jacoby Brissett. But this is the same formula they had last year when the Colts had such a spectacular year.
Yeah, completely.
Same one.
O.G. Burns on Facebook says, I know I'm thinking it's simple, knowing my Falcons, if we can beat a somewhat easy team like the Colts. And see that's where I think that you gotta be careful about that. I don't think this is somewhat easy. This is not the same thing as playing.
No.
If you want to compare AFC South for a moment, this is a better team, I think, than Tennessee.
Yes.
Jacksonville remains to be seen. But this is a team I think that has a lot more common with Houston out of the AFC South. One of those upper, there's only 4 teams in the division, but I think the Colts are a threat to win the AFC South is the point that I'm trying to get to. And I think that the absence of Andrew Luck doesn't change that all that much for me.
No, it doesn't. And when you're looking at, we're talking about strengths and weaknesses. one of the strengths of this team is now their pass rush. They're third in the league now after what happened last night. Well, Jacksonville got 9, but they have 8 sacks, so that pushes the Indianapolis back. But this is a different team that was 4 or 5 years ago. They can rush the passer. They stopped the run. They had a great defense last year. And if Darius Leonard, who's an All-Pro, Rookie of the Year last year, plays, I mean, there could be something to be said. So this is a good matchup for them. And this is a team we don't know a lot about, but we do. And was it Q or G?
Right.
Ooh, watch out now. This team is young, and they're hungry, and they're aggressive.
Well, Brandon Gallardo says this is going to be a trench battle all day long, and I think that's a pretty good point from Brandon. And to be honest here for a moment, Atlanta didn't pass the trench test against Minnesota, did much better in that regard against a good offensive and defensive front from the Philadelphia Eagles. So far, the battle in the trenches reflects the overall record.
It's like a push.
Yeah, one game Atlanta kind of got pushed around too much and lost. The next game, Atlanta asserted itself more physically and came out the winner. I think Brandon's point's a pretty good one here that, once again, it's a lot of what's going to happen at the line of scrimmage is going to determine the outcome of this game.
When did we get to the point where we overlooking somebody?
Yeah.
We just got our butts whooped in Minnesota, played a tight game in Philly. Now let's look at this game in Philly. If they catch the pass into the game, they're at the 10-yard line. Yeah. So from my standpoint, Falcon fans, I love you to death. But when did the week before we were desperate, now all of a sudden we're overlooking the team in the beginning of the season? I mean, let's just I'm just trying to wrap my hands around it.
Tyler Caruth says,
come on, man.
Tyler Caruth says the Colts are good, but we're better, and that may end up being true. Brandon Neer says, and this is a good point I think as well, I'm interested in the battle between Trufant, who certainly looked good last week, and the other corners, battling a guy like T.Y. Hilton. And it's not just Hilton in this receiving corps, as I said before. Kane, the young man out of Clemson, I like a lot. But Hilton's kind of that veteran presence who, but he's a target for Brissett, though.
Yeah, he's their main target. And I think I know so much about him because all you fantasy fans out there who have him, he's done nothing. He's barely getting 10 points. So I'm following him very close. He hadn't, this team, he hasn't really broken out and had a big-time game yet, but the Falcons have a clear advantage. I'm just telling you right now, Trufant, great advantage here. You just talked about a rookie in the game, and looking at the guys we have with Ricardo and Keanu, we are better than these guys pretty much at every position. So I do agree with the Falcon fans. We shouldn't overlook, me and you saying we shouldn't overlook them. But we sure enough have a better team across the board. We do.
Well, let me talk about one of the things I think has been a huge story in Indianapolis this week, and I think is a potential advantage for Atlanta to exploit on Sunday. If you remember on Monday's show, I said this kind of near the end. There had been some weird rumblings coming out about Adam Vinatieri's status. Vinatieri had a rough game, missed a couple of extra points, he's missed a couple of field goals. He's been a veteran presence, one of the league's top kickers for a long time. You can make a case that he might even be in the conversation for the Hall of Fame, but he's not kicked that way as of late, and he had told some reporters on Sunday after the game that he would see them tomorrow, and he wasn't slated to speak to the media. That kind of got turned, either fairly or unfairly, depends on your perspective, that kind of got turned into a thing of, well, is Vinatieri performing so poorly to start the season that he's now going to retire? Well, ultimately, one way or another, Vinatieri is going to kick for the Colts on Sunday. There are even some rumors they brought in some other kickers this week to kind of try out for that job. But Vinatieri is going to be the guy, place kicking for Atlanta on Sunday. But you have got to make this be a factor in the game, because when you listen to Vinatieri talk, it's pretty clear that he is approaching the Sunday matchup with the Falcons with less than full confidence. Here is part of his explanation this week from why it was that there was so much retirement talk about him at the beginning of the week. Here's Adam Vinatieri.
Sometimes we all need a little bit of time to decompress and think about stuff, so I just needed a little extra time to clear my mind.
What was the result of that time to clear your mind?
Anybody and everybody, if you have a lousy game, you just want to be able to make sure you get your thoughts figured out, what you want to say.
So after that, he was pressed even more of, okay, but what was the deal really about with all of this? And at that point in time, Vinatieri tried to put it to rest that he was ever considering any kind of retirement. Here's more from Adam Vinatieri on that.
Let's not read into stuff. I think ultimately, I'll apologize I didn't talk to you there at the time. I just need a little extra time. But for me saying I'll see you guys tomorrow meant I want some time to clear my mind, and then I'll be happy to talk to you guys. So all the nasty, crazy little funny rumors that we like to spread had nothing to do with any of that stuff. I just need a little extra time.
Chuck, I'm going to tell you something you already know. Yep. There's not a single person in the state of Indiana that trusts Vinatieri to make a big kick for the Colts right now. Not because he hasn't been a good kicker, just because, listen, everybody gets tapped on the shoulder eventually, and Vinatieri may be on the verge of being tapped on the shoulder in Indianapolis. Atlanta has got to find a way to make the kicking game be a part of this. On third down, find a way to make it be fourth down. Don't give up a touchdown when a field goal try would be there, because if you can make this a battle, now Atlanta wants to go for touchdowns, but between what you think you have in Matt Bryant, what Indianapolis doesn't believe it has in Adam Vinatieri right now, make the kicking game a part of this game. Yeah. That's a big potential advantage for Atlanta, and I say that knowing full well that Matt Bosher's status is up in the air right now. The weird status of Adam Vinatieri makes the kicking game a potential advantage for the Falcons.
Well, the Falcons have already gained a competitive advantage by the negativity that he's brought to the team. I mean, again, we talk about things that do distract teams. Your kicker, he's a Hall of Famer. He's missing kicks, and literally in the middle of the season, y'all can call it what you want to call it. Oh, he's having a hard time, all the media. Know what he's trying to do? This is called quitting. I don't care if you're a Hall of Famer or not. You're talking about one of your teammates. To me, suck it up, get better, right? Figure it out. But my thing is, as an organization, you already knew this guy was halfway in and out the door. He didn't exactly come into, I seen things from, going a little bit back, I read that he was already what? He was having problems in preseason, right? So to me, if he taps out now, if he does it, he's quitting. So is it for the good of the team? Maybe. But when I see it, this does give the Falcons a psychological advantage, and it puts a whole nother negative on this other team. So I like it for the Falcons, but shame, and you got to deal with Andrew Luck, and then you got to deal with this guy, two guys that were the rocks of your organization, and now it looks like they're both trying to tap out.
Yeah, this is a potential soap opera subplot for the Colts. The Falcons have got to find a way to make this matter on Sunday. That is potentially an advantage that can be exploited. However, the other thing that's going to be brought into the spotlight for the Falcons on Sunday, after Dalvin Cook had such a big game going back to week one, this is a Colts team that can rush the football. Now, you got Mack, who's, I guess, missed some practices. He's got an uncertain injury status right now. But Atlanta has certainly, Indianapolis has certainly found some success running the football on Sunday over the course of the first couple weeks of the season. And this week, Colts coach Frank Reich talked about the ability to run the ball, what that also opens up for the Indianapolis offense. Here's what Frank Reich had to say about that.
Well, it does several things. It opens up our playbook as far as, play action stuff, which, of course, everybody knows. But really I think what it does is I think it also minimizes the defense's playbook, because when you can run the football, I think it forces the issue on defenses to stop the run, and they got to commit to doing that. So, that we do like to do that.
So I think it's a very interesting test. Max status regardless. I think it's a very interesting test to see Atlanta back on the road looking to get off the field and keep a rushing game held at bay 2 weeks prior, having not done that at Minneapolis. Let's see how much this team has grown from week 1 to week 3. That, in and of itself, the game within the game right there, I think that's a pretty fun storyline for Sunday.
Yeah, and you speak of the run. This is going to be about power. Indianapolis is going to come in and try to put power against the Falcons, because they're going to go study what Minnesota did. And I'm really interested to see Quentin Nelson going against Grady Jarrett. This is going to be a big-time matchup. Grady's on the right, Quentin's on the left, so it's going to be great to watch. It's going to be interesting to see how Grady handles going against a guy that is the best in the league, number one. So I'm interested to see how Grady handles the challenge. But also, Tack McKinley and Vic Beasley, this is a team in Indianapolis. They like to go add 2-3 extra offensive linemen to one side, for our viewers that are trying to explain that. So one side, they like to go in balance. You're going to have 5 offensive linemen on one side, and it's going to be a test to see how Vic and, Tack measure up against this power football and set the edge like some of the things they didn't do against Minnesota. Will be a great test.
That's a great comment to bring up. All right, let's get some your comments here in our Facebook comment section. You're watching AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Blake Robinson says, also don't forget about Indianapolis and its use of the tight ends. That certainly makes this team dangerous as well. Keaton Call says, at the end of the day, if our defensive line can show the same physical prowess they did last week, we should come out with this win. And I really think that Keaton is hitting on something pretty important. We just talked about that there. You got to find a way to get around that edge. We saw, and I know you've had your issues with what appears to be a transition from the 4-3 to the 3-4, which can present some problems when it comes to your rush defense. But what happens there on those edges, setting the edge either for the offense or the defense, it's going to go a long way towards determining this game.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like it a little bit different now. As I see what Dan Quinn did last week against Philadelphia, the first week against Minnesota, he didn't get a chance to really do anything.
Yeah.
You know, he was already backed up against the wall. So Dan is showing 3-4, you know, a lot of times on the run, but he's running 4 up front when he's, you know, going to rush the passer. But the Falcons, it is going to be a great test for these guys. It is going to be, you know, a team that's going to believe in themselves. Remember, this is a place, Lucas Oil Stadium.
Yeah.
It's going to be loud.
It is loud.
I mean, we haven't talked about that,
Yeah.
you know, somewhat an advantage, but now, you know, so you're exactly right, though. I understand what you're saying.
Chad Warren says we got to get free going at all costs, and that's kind of something you talked about earlier. That running game for Atlanta, especially the aspect of which Devontae Freeman plays into that, that's something that I think even after 2 games is still very much an unknown for Atlanta. You know, how effective can Freeman be? I know he's been go back to Monday's show, we did AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite, that there was a ton of questions being asked about, you know, what the Falcons are getting from Freeman right now. He's got a little bit of a sign on his back because of the money that he makes as well. That's a guy that Falcons fans are ready to see a big contribution from.
Well, yeah, he's been one of the ones right now so far. It's been a little disappointing, you know, as far as I'm concerned. I want to see him get back to the Dalvin Cook kind of look. I mean, him and Dalvin Cook were the same guy. He's the same running style. I want to see that, but is it fair to him? He comes back from concussion, an offensive line that's still trying to develop themselves, but then we hold him accountable for what he's not doing, even though we know our O-line is challenged physically, because you've alluded a few times, this is a throwing offense. They're not built to knock you back like Indianapolis is, but they got to find some kind of way to get it going. They cannot expect teams. Why have play action pass if you can't run the ball?
Right.
I mean, which is one of our Dirk Cutter's one of the best things that he brought back is the play action pass. So, I mean, the run's going to help the pass, but it's imperative that they figure it out fast. And if Ito Smith is a guy, they're going to have to make it Ito Smith. But I doubt that. Weston got a lot of. But eventually, if this is about championships, which I know the Falcons, you know, it's about that. I know the Falcons at some point, whoever's running the best, Dan Quinn will make sure he's going to be the guy getting the carries. I know that.
Keaton Call's got a good comment in our Facebook comment section. I want to get to that in a moment. First, let me tell you about this cool thing I have right here on my desk. This is an officially licensed, branded Falcons cooler. You know, the AJC, proud partners of the Atlanta Falcons, and because of that, as a special thank you to you, when you sign up to become a subscriber to the AJC, as a gift, you're going to get yourself one of these Atlanta Falcons coolers. Really, really cool. There's a website you can go to. It's subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. Subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. There's a variety of choices that you can go to when you go to the website. You can get the daily AJC e-paper, or you can get a combination of the e-paper and the Sunday print delivered to your home, or you can get the 7-day print as well. But all of those combinations, you're free to cancel those anytime. And as a special thank you, you get the Atlanta Falcons branded cooler. As I said before, the AJC proud partners of the Atlanta Falcons. You love the coverage you get from D. Orlando Ledbetter, Michael Cunningham, Steve Hummer, Mark Bradley, the entire AJC team embedded in Flowery Branch each and every week. And the next step to get all the Falcons coverage is become an AJC subscriber. So one more time, subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. On Facebook, Keaton Call says about Matt Ryan, really kind of talking about the need to improve these turnover situations. He says that Ryan needs to stop forcing the ball into places that he shouldn't. He knows better than this. The turnovers are bad. And then in all caps, Keaton says, we have to protect the football. So why don't we talk about that here for a moment? A lot of candor coming out of Flowery Branch this week about how not just Ryan's role in this needs to improve, but the overall turnover margin in general not being where Falcons coach Dan Quinn wants it to be. In fact, he said as much this week. Here's what Quinn had to say.
We've got to get our turnover margin back squared away. We're going to fight like crazy to try to get back into the plus, you know, to be where we're at, you know, after 2 games, and -3 is not where we want to be. With the football, we know we have work cut out for us, and it'll take all phases for us to do that. The way we take care of it, the way we go after it.
So listen, I think that Quinn's bringing up a pretty good point here, Chuck, that at this point in time, you know, the evaluation of Ryan is ongoing, but you kind of also get into how it's affecting the overall turnover margin for the team. You know, listen, to a certain extent, I believe the turnovers luck. It's kind of hard to impact the turnovers that you force. It's maybe a little easier to control the turnovers that you limit, and clearly that's an aspect after what happened in Minnesota, and even last week, at times, Ryan, at least from the perspective of some fans, a bit reckless with the football. that is clearly something that the spotlight will be on going into Indianapolis on Sunday.
Yeah, and this has kind of been the narrative so far this season, and everyone seems to come back and say, okay, it's going to get better next week. Oh, it's going to get better. You got to control the ball. I mean, that's like one of the most important parts. That is the most important part of the game, because if you go to Flowery Branch, you go inside the building, they got little footballs on springs everywhere you go. Like Dan says, it's about the ball, and that's what they have in-house. So literally every time you turn around, it's a ball. But the Falcons, clearly, they got to keep creating turnovers, because True Font and the interceptions we got last week were huge in the game from a momentum standpoint, but also gave you an extra possession. The Falcons, when they turn the ball over, they're losing a possession.
Yeah,
so
great point.
Yeah, they're losing a possession, and you can't play like that, because the year when we went to the Super Bowl, this team was one of the tops in the plus when it comes to getting turnovers.
That's a great point. Now, obviously, Matt Ryan was very open about discussing this on Sunday night heading into the start of the week, and his offensive coordinator, Dirk Cutter, says that's one of the things about Ryan he really likes. Here's the Falcons OC.
That's why he's the guy that he is. That's why he's such a good leader, and his experience allows him to take ownership. It's unusual for Matt to make some decisions that we're not used to seeing him make. He was a little bit late on one of them, the one right before the half. The one in the red zone was just not his best decision. You know, he had the check down open underneath and tried to go over the top. So, you know, for all the good plays that Matt makes, you know, when you're the quarterback and everything goes through you, you're gonna miss some as well.
So I said this on Monday, and not every Falcons fan would agree with this, and I understand why. But for the most part, I think sometimes we overrate the calamity of an interception. What I mean is, you can't just not throw the ball to Calvin Ridley because he has two defenders on him. Otherwise, you've allowed the defense to completely neutralize one of your best offensive weapons. So I don't mind occasionally forcing the football. I actually don't mind, and in fact, it's more than I don't mind. I like a quarterback who's willing to try to squeeze it into a tight window, a quarterback who has the guts to attempt a big throw. That's what I want from, you know, your NFL franchise quarterback. That's what you want from your guy in that situation. However, the one thing I am going to align myself with Falcons fans on is the idea that it killed you in Minnesota a week ago, and it could really get you hurt and put you in bad shape against Indianapolis. Ryan avoiding mistakes, even if I think that they have been sort of made too much of, certainly last week, but Ryan avoiding mistakes is a big storyline for Sunday.
Well, no question, and that was a big storyline last week, particularly when you think of how the game could have turned out. But everybody wants to win. Right? Everybody wants to play perfect, but does it always happen that way? No. But I'd rather my quarterback not be perfect, especially right now if I got an improved defense, a defense that can withstand interceptions. But Matt Ryan, to me, one of the biggest things for him is I need to see him not shuffle out of the pocket. When you decide to go, go.
Yeah.
A lot of times you stand there, pump, go.
Right.
You know there's a clock on it. You know your offensive line's a little shaky. Matt, and you know you're not Mike Vick. But we saw last year, the last 2 years, he can run.
Yeah.
So stop trying to be so patient when you start getting a little shaky. Go. He can run, or at least try to do something. I mean, but you can't just sit back there and just pump the ball.
We've been saying this all year long because of the fact, and right now Caleb McGarry's status, and Sombrello, you've got some issues on that right side with some injuries and everything else. Because this offensive line is going to be likely a work in progress all season long, we know that the time frame for Ryan throwing the football, it's going to be shortened all season. So whether it's you keep a play alive with your legs, which admittedly Ryan probably doesn't do as well as some NFL quarterbacks do.
But he can do it.
But he can do it better than maybe some people think.
Yeah.
Or if it's just the quick read, the quick release, I think that Ryan's got to understand that, and I know he does understand this, but he's got to understand that his timing is going to be diminished compared to some quarterbacks who have, an offensive line they have full trust in. He probably doesn't have full trust in this offensive line right now. And on the one throw to Hooper on Sunday, it certainly seemed like he could have been affected by contact, and that's going to be something that he just deals with all season long.
But I get it. You're in the red zone, though. You got everybody around you. You can't really see, because at that point, the pocket is collapsing. Those are the situations I'm trying to run. I'm not taking an intercept. I'm not getting sacked, nor am I going to throw an interception. Let's play for the 3. Let's just play for the 3, live the fight again, and that's what I want to see. But you're 100% correct. You got to make a decision. If you think the offensive line's a little bit shaky, take off. I mean,
make him respect that aspect of your game.
Yeah, because we know he can move now.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not asking him to run a 4-3. But in that short little area, especially when teams are playing man-to-man, Go.
I feel sorry for our producer, Michael Carvel. Every now and then I'll just shout twice as loud as I've been talking all show long. So if I just screamed into your ears, if you've got your earbuds in, I apologize for that. How about something that's not quite so loud? How about Matt Ryan, as we said before, kind of owning his piece of this interception story through the first 2 games? Here's what he said about that a couple of days ago from Flowery Branch.
I don't worry about that too much. I think it's, at the end of the year, you look back and look at the cumulative total. It's certainly not the start you want in terms of turning the football over, but, it happens like that sometimes. You just got to weather the storm and keep making good decisions, be aggressive with the football, and believe that it's going to turn.
So that's what you want your quarterback to think, by the way. And I know that
that's exactly what you're supposed to say.
Yeah, I mean, and I know that it may sound like coach speak in a certain way.
It was.
But the same way that a cornerback and a wide receiver, you're supposed to have a short memory. If you're Ryan, you can't go out there thinking about the last time you threw the ball into harm's way and it got picked off. You do have to shake it off and go on. I know that may not sound like as much emotion as some Falcons fans want to hear about the topic, because there are some Falcons fans, probably with good reason, who think this is a very big deal. But Ryan kind of shrugging it off and saying, I'm going to go out there and keep doing what I've been doing, I actually think that's the right mentality.
It is the right mentality. They say you got to shake it off, but in my 9 years in the NFL, I do not believe that a quarterback can just forget about it, because you're also studying what coverage made you throw it that way. So just right there you're contradicting yourself, because if I throw an interception, I'm thinking about what the coverage that I threw the interception in. So you got to have thick skin, right? You got to be ready and deal with all the negativity that comes with it, but you still got to play. But quarterbacks that throw interceptions, particularly when it comes against a good pass rush, they do remember, because coverage changes, and so they still got to I'm still thinking about what happened before, but I do got to move forward.
As a defensive player, how tough are those quick change situations when your quarterback throws an interception? It happens every level of football, even for franchise quarterbacks in the NFL. You're going to have that turnover for the quick change on that defense, and you got to buckle that chin strap and go out there, and in all likelihood, you're playing on a short field.
Yep.
What's that like for you?
Well, let me show you. It's like, all right, they had a 12-play drive, right?
Yeah.
We come back, we sit on the bench, take my helmet off. All right, Hammer, good stuff. Got the sudden change.
Yeah.
Oh, man, we just got we backed up. Steve Young is at quarterback, Joe Montana. Next thing you know, touchdown. It's demoralizing. It really is, particularly when you don't have a good defense. Now, for this Falcon teams, they're a good defense, so it's a little different. Now, let me just tell you something a little bit, and this is a little not to do with the Falcons, with a team I had a chance to be a part of as a camp coach. Now, the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
This is just tell you what I saw, and this is incredible, really. I was in a room with Ray Lewis and all these guys, and they were talking about sudden change and all this different stuff. They was like, they were just going through. Rex Ryan was, this when Rex was D coordinator. They were like, Ray, what do you do here? What do you do here? And then Ray was like, whenever they throw an interception, Ray, what does that mean? That's more airtime for us. I looked like this. I was like, how about that? This was in 2009 when I was at the Ravens. So the mentality of your defense has to be like what I teach, and I teach guys now. Offense throwing an interception, it's more time for us to shine. So I hope the Falcons have that mentality.
That reminds me of the line that I attributed to Ray Lewis of back in the Super Bowl year in 2000, where he would go to, back then it was Trent Dilfer in the offense and say, listen, just don't let them score. We'll go out and find a defensive score. Just don't let them score. Don't let their defense score.
Our defense right now is solid, and they're going to get better. And that's one of the things that I'm not as stressed about Matt Ryan's interceptions right now. But because we got a defense that's shown that they're going to be able to help, help the offense out. But we hope Matt gets it right. I'm ready for him to heat it up, start putting up 3-4 touchdowns. That's what I'm looking for.
We got some comments coming in. Let me read a few of these. Okay. Carolyn Lombard says, Ryan has been dealing with the haters forever, win or lose. And for me, that's just the aspect of being a franchise quarterback. Every city in America, you got some big name guy playing quarterback in that town, and he's always going to be the lightning rod for the good or for the bad. And from that standpoint with Ryan, I don't think that's much different than how many guys around the league are treated.
Yeah.
You go look at Eli in New York, go look at Dak Prescott, the debate over his contract in Dallas. If you're the franchise quarterback or on your way to being the franchise quarterback, you're going to be the hot topic every week, win or lose.
I just think from Matt Ryan's standpoint, the expectations haven't met the Super Bowl. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
If Matt Ryan wins a Super Bowl, what can you say? Right now, if we win that Super Bowl, 3 years ago, there's nothing you can say. I mean, he becomes that. He wins a Super Bowl, he's on the ballot.
Yeah.
I don't know if he gets in, but
knocking on the door, though, for sure.
But Matt Ryan, I will say this from an Atlanta perspective, all Atlanta athletes, Matt Ryan is one of the most scrutinized Atlanta athletes in the history of sports here.
Yeah.
No question about it. The fire that he came into, the negativity, things that just came before him. And I'm not delving into that, but me as a fan who watched all the sports, he is the most one of the most scrutinized athletes who's had nothing but what is 80% success.
Yeah.
I mean, what has he been, a 6th playoff? I mean, he took us to a 6, 7 playoff. So to me, Matt Ryan, I like Matt Ryan personally, but he ain't got a Super Bowl, so right now he's not looked at the same.
And I won't deny that the phase of Ryan's career that he's entering or already in kind of increases that pressure. And I would also think that Ryan, based on the clip we just heard, he seems mentally equipped to be able to handle that. If anyone understands what is required of a franchise quarterback, big money guy, a guy that's supposed to deliver the football, the other big money guy, Julio Jones, and your first round draft pick, Calvin Ridley, and everything else, I think that Ryan is wired in such a way to be able to handle that. If he were sitting right here, right now, and we were saying, hey, Matt, expectation for you is to win a Super Bowl, expectation for you is to put this Atlanta team on your back when you need to, I think he'd say, I'm okay with that. And maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but I don't think Ryan's shying away from the expectations on that.
No question about that. He knows what the expectations are, and I like it. I call it the Peyton Manning effect. All the quarterbacks know how to handle it. You might go behind with your wife and say, oh, nah, but in the public's eye, you're the leader. And if you look frazzled, if you're flinching, the team's going to flinch. So if Matt Ryan was Cam Newton, look at how Cam Newton's kind of his effect on that organization. Cam is shaky.
Right.
But Matt Ryan, when you're leader, no matter what Julio said, Matt Ryan is the leader of the Atlanta Falcons. I love the way he handles himself, win or lose or draw. Matt Ryan comes out and what does he do? He puts the team before himself, because if he's emotional and looks an absolute mess, it's going to also affect the team. So I like what Matt Ryan, how he handles himself. That's what a leader should do.
Ricky Cole, though, says a quarterback alone doesn't win a Super Bowl, a team does. And Ricky, you understand how this goes. Yeah. That's factually accurate, yet I mean, I've been talking football since I was a kid. We've always put this stuff on the quarterbacks, right? We don't talk about the defensive ends.
Well, I don't.
Yeah, we don't put
this.
Don't
be speaking for me, BA.
Well, but but
I don't. I know.
I mean, like we don't say, hey, the defensive end is 4-0 in Super Bowls. We keep up with win-loss records for quarterbacks the way we don't for other positions.
That made me laugh. That's funny. You know what's crazy? It's not always the quarterback, because you look. Look at the first game. We talk about the D-line, right?
Yeah.
D-line didn't stop nobody. Julio didn't do nothing in the game. But all we talk about is what Matt Ryan did, so
that's true.
Again, you all know that. But the bottom line is, quarterbacks get what? All the praise and pretty much all the blame.
Rodney Leppert says he's always going to be my quarterback. A lot of Falcons fans would agree with that. Hunter Harvick also brings up a different point, and we'll do this for a couple seconds. He says, do you think we have a chance to trade for Jalen Ramsey from Jacksonville? At this point in time, I'm guessing that the price tag on that's probably pretty high, but when those rumors started popping up about Ramsey, a guy that I really like, coming out of Florida State, you better believe I was thinking about it from an Atlanta perspective of, how a guy like that fits into the Atlanta secondary. You better believe I was at least thinking about it, but I'm guessing that price tag. This is not a Miami situation. They're going to get fleeced on these trades. You better be thinking that.
I'm good on that.
Oh, is that right?
I
like Ramsey, man, as a player.
I don't like him. I want a team. To me, the best teams win championship, not a team with all the stars. We've seen that. I'm good with Ramsey. You good? You can go to Raiders. You can go wherever you want. But I'm good. Falcons go back to the draft next year. I'm good, Ramsey. I don't want none of that.
Keaton Call brings up a good point. It could very well be that Atlanta didn't have the cap space for him as well, and that's probably true. Although there was a report coming out of Jacksonville that virtually, and I don't know if this came from Shad Khan or whom, but virtually, according to Jacksonville, virtually every team at some point had reached out about Ramsey. He is that kind of talent. But I understand what you're saying. Maybe, when you kick off to start the month of September, you want to go out there and win or lose with the team that you've drawn up on the roster.
And Dan Quinn, description of the brotherhood is guys who work together for a common cause, right?
Yeah.
Ramsey has already put the blueprint together.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm not going to assume he just comes here and becomes, this guy who fits right in. I'm going by what I already seen. This Falcons team has enough talent to not bring in a Jalen Ramsey. Now, he's a baller, but I'm good because I've been on teams that had all the hype and all that, but we were losers. Then we get a team that just had lunch pail kind of guys.
Yeah.
I said, I'm good on that Ramsey. You can keep him.
Roberta Eberhardt doesn't like the attitude that Ramsey will be bringing to Atlanta either. Shabir Ahmad checking in as well. We appreciate those comments. We'll keep doing those. Let me transition here for a moment. It's Chuck Smith, the former Atlanta Falcon. My name is Brandon Adams. You're watching AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. And as I said before, Miller Lite's a great choice here this weekend when you're getting ready to enjoy some football. It's the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It's the original live beer, and it tastes great, and it's less filling. And you'll certainly enjoy some Miller Lite for yourself here this weekend. Let me go back and let you hear some Julio Jones here for a moment, because there's a funny exchange between Julio and the AJC's D. Orlando Ledbetter. D-Led wants to get the full story on what happened last Sunday, the thrilling touchdown that won the game against the Eagles, and Julio Jones has already turned the page. He didn't want to talk about this. I thought this was kind of funny. Take a listen to D-Led with Julio here.
Yeah, I'm past that. All right, that's like in my head. I can't remember now. That's old. You know what I mean? We don't got no rearview mirrors. We snatched those down. It's on to the Colts right now. That's our mindset and mentality right now for them, moving forward and, going out here and compete and play Falcon football.
Yeah. Did you have to get Muhammad an extra burger or something for the block? Because Coach Dirk said he got it all started.
You talking about the game? We don't talk about that. That's old. That's old. That's gone. Well, hey, good or bad, whatever happened, anybody can do it one time. Can you do it again? You know what I mean? It's just mentality and mindset. We don't look back. We don't do none of that. That's done. We're on to the Colts right now, Indianapolis Colts.
So he says he's on to Cincinnati. I'm joking. The old Belichick line. He says, "Listen, we're on to the Colts. I'm not thinking about that Eagles touchdown anymore."
And we're starting to see the evolution of Julio Jones as a personality.
A little bit more of a personality,
He's got a little more personality in it. I'm liking what I'm seeing.
Yeah, a little bit more of a personality. It seems like you're getting some of that. I think that's a pretty funny exchange for the most part. I think that Julio's mostly tongue-in-cheek when he says that stuff there. But as a player, I mean, how important is it to say, you can't fixate on what you did last week and previous moments. You got to look ahead. As a player, how important is that?
I think it just depends on the player. Some guys, unlike Julio, they say, "Yeah, man, it was I did this and did this, and it's okay." Just different personalities. Julio is, Bama built or Bama made. Yeah. That's kind of like a lot of the guys are like that. But I think it has just to do with who you are. But I do like the fact that as the leader of the team, remember, there's these little messages that his teammates are seeing. Yeah. We're moving forward. Right? Let's not get satisfied, right? So I think those are kind of little things that Julio's doing and setting a precedent for the rest of the players.
Here's what I will say, though. And I understand his mindset and his whole Bama-built deal. It's very much a Saban-esque thing he says there. I'm going to tell you this right now, and Julio probably can't say this, but I think we all know this is true. That was more than just a regular touchdown. And I don't think that the Philadelphia game last week was necessarily you had to win it, must win, season's over if you don't. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but you know the deal. We talked about this. There are people waiting to pounce on Julio. $66 million. What's he doing for you? Didn't show up big in the in Minneapolis game or the Minnesota game until it was almost over. Second half he kind of starts playing big. The game was already out of hand. Doesn't really show up big until late against the Philadelphia Eagles. There were people ready to pounce on Julio, fairly or unfairly. Getting that touchdown, the fact that the big moment in the game came from the guy you just gave the big bucks to, symbolically that means something to me. And I understand why Julio doesn't want to talk about it.
Didn't he break the franchise record, or wasn't that a part of it?
Yeah, and Ryan kind of set a record there too. Right. So it's kind of a historic night there in that regard. But this was more than just a regular touchdown. I get why Julio doesn't want to talk about it. From his standpoint,
it's like, remember we talked about flinching? If you start talking about, that was the greatest play I've ever had. It just changed. I'm so glad I got the monkey off my back. That's just not Julio. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I think in this new era of guys, how they are, they're going to downplay it. And then big time guys, but man, I expected that.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I mean, but even though behind closed doors, Julio, I can tell you this, Julio is happy that he's making plays and taking some of the negative off of how much money he makes.
Bobby Spears says it's the right mindset to have by Julio, go Falcons. And also Hunter Harvick was talking about the play calling situation with Dirk Cutter in place of, Kyle Shanahan was here 2 years ago. And that's the other thing about this play on Sunday in particular that I think's a big deal. I mean, Falcons fans obviously last year weren't completely happy with Steve Sarkisian, to say the least. With Cutter this year, that's a name that Falcons fans know, but other than the end of the Super Bowl, I think Falcons fans had to have been thrilled with the way that Kyle Shanahan called this offense, and every offensive coordinator in the wake of Shanahan is going to be compared to Shanny there in that regard. So when you see a key moment late in the game like it was on Sunday with Julio's touchdown and the way that Cutter made Jim Schwartz, the Eagles defensive coordinator, pay for the kind of all-out blitz that he sent on that fourth down play, not only does it validate Julio, the big contract that he signed, but it also validates Cutter as an offensive coordinator that Falcons fans can trust in this second go-around with the organization. I wouldn't short sell that part of this, too. Falcons fans are not sure what to think about their OCs in recent years, and that was a big moment for Cutter to maybe earn some trust from Falcons fans on his way back with the team.
Yeah, I think he's earning trust from the Falcon fans. And I'll just say one thing, and I'm going to flip this a little bit.
Please.
It's a lot easier to have that kind of offense when your O-line's better. Now, last year, the offensive line was a shamble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, again, Cutter made some good plays in the whole nine and made some good calls and it's called a pretty good offense. So, you got to keep it going. To me, so I'm not quite sure, what I feel about the offense yet.
Yeah.
Game one, no offense.
Yeah.
I mean, basically no offense. But I will say this, the Falcon fans are happy because, number one, they ain't like the last coordinator. It didn't matter what happened, you know what I mean? But it didn't go well. So I just think the Falcon fans, I think it's a good look. But I think the bigger thing in something like you just talked about is that it was Julio.
Yeah.
Because the real narrative last year was what? God, we can't get the ball to Julio. Get the ball to Julio. Now you see them getting the ball to Julio, so it was kind of symbolic.
Anderson Puckett says Julio's the GOAT. Right now you got Dion top of the list, best Falcon of all time?
Me?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Nobis?
Nah, not Nobis. Ah, man, I can't say.
My point is, I won't ask you. I won't ask you to rank him.
No, I know, but
I'm
in the top 5. I'll say that.
But the door is open for Julio to be number one, to be the face.
I mean, he's a Hall of Famer.
The face of the franchise.
Julio's a Hall of Famer, so I would say, yeah, he's probably number one at this point.
All right, it's AJC Falcons News Now. It's sponsored by Miller Lite. That's Chuck Smith. My name's Brandon Adams. Don't forget, the Falcons branded cooler. The AJC is a proud partner of the Atlanta Falcons. As a gift to you, when you subscribe to the AJC to get even bigger and better Falcons coverage than you get solely online at AJC.com, even more as a gift to you, we have this very special branded Falcons cooler to go along with that. The website, you see it on your screen, subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. Subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. You get a variety of choices. You can get e-paper every day, e-paper plus Sunday delivery, 7 days home delivery, which I really love. I like to sit there and drink my coffee and read the paper. I enjoy doing that. Whatever your choice is, you can subscribe and get the cooler as a choice for you. But go to the website, subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now.
Can I say something real quick? You just asked about, Julio. Yeah. Julio, no question, as a Falcon, is probably 1 or 2. I don't know who the second is, but I can tell you this. Let's go back to what you said about Deion Sanders. As a Falcon, Deion Sanders did great things. But as a Falcon, he's not better than Jesse Tuggle.
Yeah.
It's not even a question.
That's fair.
So I know Falcon fans, all the hype you see with Deion.
Hammer.
With Hammer. I love the new hype with Hammer. I mean, with Deion. But as a Falcon, it's not even close for what Jesse Tuggle brought. Now, Deion, his book of work, got him to be a Hall of Famer. Yeah. But Jesse Tuggle's a better Falcon.
Wearing this uniform.
I'm not talking about league.
San Francisco and Dallas.
Jesse Tuggle in Atlanta. Yeah. There is no comparison what the Hammer brought. Because remember this real quick, and then we can move on. Jesse Tuggle was a 5-time alternate before he made his first Pro Bowl. If Jesse Tuggle plays in Dallas, he's a 10-time Pro Bowler, and he's a Hall of Famer.
I appreciate your respect for the history, Chuck. I like that about you. I love your respect for the history, and Tuggle is obviously a big part of the Falcons' history on that. Before we're done, we're going to look at the big games around Week 3 in the NFL and how they impact Atlanta. But speaking of that, here on AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite, let me dive into a big storyline here for a moment that Matt Ryan did talk about a little bit this week. We saw Drew Brees get hurt this past Sunday in L.A. Saints now play without him for a while, but especially this Sunday in Seattle. I think that Cam Newton's situation right now is just bizarre. That is not the quarterback that he once was, whether he's healthy and playing or not. He is not what he once was. And Matt Ryan was asked about how these injuries of NFC South quarterbacks potentially impact the Atlanta Falcons, and Ryan admitted that, listen, these kinds of quarterback injuries are a part of the game. Here's what Ryan said about his counterparts.
Well, I certainly, am thankful, to have been able to stay as healthy as I have throughout my career. And then, as far as seeing the other guys in the NFC South, you never want to see guys go down. It's one of the. Thank you for knocking on the wood over there. You never want to see guys go down. You hate seeing that for them, but that's part of it in this league. It's having to have the next guy step up. And
one more from Ryan on this: the idea that it's the season still early, but paying attention to who's doing well and who's leaving the door open for Atlanta when it comes to those NFC South standings. That is obviously something Ryan is already paying attention to. Here's Matt again.
You know where you stand for sure. We're 2 games into it. We got a long way to go, and we're just trying to get wins each week and keep stacking them up. And then at the end of the year, we want to be on top of the division.
we obviously talk on this show for a full hour on the Falcons, but if you ask me to sum up the storyline for this team right now in one sentence, it's this. The injuries to quarterbacks in the NFC South make this division wide open and very winnable for Atlanta, even though we could talk for days about how imperfect the Falcons are, and those would be valid points. This is an open division right now, and Drew Brees going down last Sunday only magnified that point.
Yeah, put a lot of pressure on Teddy Bridgewater, see what he's going to do.
Yeah.
You know, it is huge. Look at what's going on with Cam. Jameis Winston is not worthy right now as far as the number one pick, the way he's played. And Drew Brees, this is the rival. This is the team Atlanta's chasing. This is who, I mean, when the season started, Carolina's going to be tough. Yeah, we got to, might have a little snap from Tampa, but New Orleans right now, they have set the standard right now in this NFC South. But when you lose a guy like Drew Brees, them guys in the locker room ain't crying for the Saints. I mean, it's a lot better when you're going against the guy who's number 2.
Yeah.
Because number 2 is not better than number 1. And Drew Brees is a Hall of Famer. When you take a Hall of Famer out of a lineup, I mean, it's going to be different when they go to the huddle. I mean, they go to their breakdown and Drew Brees say, 1, 2, 3, breakdown. Hey, if he doesn't have his clothes on, doesn't have his shoulder pads on, that's a different kind of
A little less bass in the voice from that breakdown,
yeah.
All right, well, with that in mind, let's look at some of these Week 3 games and Atlanta trying to keep pace with the rest of the division and some of the other games to pay attention to. Cincinnati's at Buffalo. Buffalo is off to a 2-0 start. Be very careful with the Bengals on Sunday. Miami's at Dallas. This is going to be kind of fun because Rosen's actually going to play quarterback for the Dolphins on Sunday.
Are they tanking?
They're tanking like crazy.
You
but
really
actually,
believe that?
I think they're tanking like crazy.
And I've never seen a team in the NFL.
This may be the worst team in NFL in my lifetime. This may be the worst NFL.
Worse than
I'm 42
Cleveland.
years old.
Worse than Detroit.
This may be the 0-16 Lions. There's a very good chance this is worse than that Lions team. Was Schwartz the head coach for that team?
Wow, that's unbelievable.
This may be the worst NFL team in my lifetime. They're not even trying. Denver, Green Bay is kind of fun. Baltimore, Kansas City, that's a good game on Sunday.
Yeah,
however, I think that Kansas City walks the dog with the Ravens. I want to be on the record about that. Oakland at Minnesota. I would tell you this, closer than the experts think, Jets are a huge underdog at New England. I know that they still got mononucleosis, I guess, with your boy Darnold. I could see the Jets keeping it closer with the Patriots on Sunday. Not winning the game, just keeping it closer.
It's going to be ugly.
Detroit at Philadelphia. We mentioned the situation with Carolina. They're at Arizona. That's a game if you're Carolina. If you don't win that, then, I mean, I know that Murray's put up some stats. The Cardinals are not good. That's one of your winnable road games. Carolina's in a big spot right there. The Giants in Tampa, I wouldn't watch that in your backyard. Houston at the Chargers. I don't even know what to say about that. Does New Orleans have any chance with Bridgewater to keep close in a hostile environment in Seattle?
Oh, yeah, still got weapons all around them.
Yeah.
They got a good offensive line, defensive line. I still has a shot. It's going to be interesting how Teddy, if he's Teddy that's been the backup or it's going to be Teddy that's worthy of a starting position.
Speaking of quarterback injuries, obviously the Roethlisberger injury is a big storyline as the Steelers go to San Francisco.
Niners are rolling, though.
Yeah, Rams at Cleveland. Cleveland got on to a winning ways on Monday night against the Jets. Chicago at Washington. I'm not sure what to make of that really one way or another. So a fun Week 3 coming up around the National Football League.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Week 3 is going to be pretty good. I think the NFL season so far has been really interesting.
Been
with
pretty
quarterback
entertaining.
injuries, guys running their mouth like Baker Mayfield, and coaches Greg Williams, Bountygate back. So it's, it's been a crazy.
I will say
far.
I love rooting against Baker Mayfield. That is to me a fun guy to root against.
It's hard not to.
Yeah.
I mean, he is.
Some of the stuff he did, like Hugh Jackson, some of that kind of stuff. I just think he comes across. I don't know.
He's always been that way, even against Georgia a couple years ago.
Davin Bellamy said, humble yourself. I think that's pretty good advice. All right. One of the things we do on our show each and every week, and Chuck, I told you, Chuck is a student of the history of the game. And he's a real, a guy that brings in a lot of the artifacts from his history. Chuck has brought in something cool from his sort of man cave sports section every single day. Today, no example. Even going way back here for a moment. First of all, who doesn't love those Falcons uniforms? I mean, are you kidding me with those? Those are fantastic. Even though it was sometimes kind of rough on Atlanta, I got great memories of the old NFC West. Enjoyed being in that division there. And tell us the story of what you brought here today.
Quick story. This is 1992. Okay. 1992. The year before that, the Falcons, it's well documented that Jerry Glanville, declared us the California State champs. We beat San Diego. We beat, Oakland.
Glanville, man,
Rams,
he's entertaining.
And who else was it? The Chargers, but nonetheless. So we get a trophy. So the next year, the Niners are pissed. So we go to Candlestick, and let's just say they beat the brakes off of us, killed us. So this video here is one of their touchdowns where I dove after Steve Young. I missed Steve Young, not going to act like I got a sack.
Yeah.
And he threw the ball. It hit one of our defenders. He caught it and scored.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of the bloopers, but kind of a little history where where I took a butt with him.
So listen, we all know what it was like back then. This was one of the historic runs for a franchise what San Francisco put together.
Oh, man.
And y'all were in the unfortunate position along with the Rams and
Cowboys
being in that division, having to deal with that. But
it really wasn't. It really, at some point, it almost wasn't fair.
Yeah, 3,000 miles
they just
away.
had.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Montana, you got Steve Young, you got Jerry Rice, you got Ricky Waters, you got all 3, 4. But it was a learning lesson.
But when you guys have your big moment in '98, there was no more perfect team. The big regular season win came against San Francisco, and then the playoff win came against San Francisco in the divisional round. How appropriate was it in your mind that a foe that had been such a nemesis for so many years, you got a chance to vanquish them in that spot? How much more special did it make it?
It was one of the most incredible football days of my life.
Yeah.
I mean, just to be
I was there that day. It's great, great atmosphere.
Yep.
Great atmosphere. Falcons fans can get after it when they want to.
I don't know if it can be louder it can be louder in the stadium. It was unbelievable. The fans was like, thank you. I mean, the fans in the city, everybody, you'd go everywhere we go to say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because the Niners absolutely dominated us. I mean, I don't know exactly what the record was, but we beat them. That was a great memory. Then to go to the Super Bowl was like,
It's great stuff. I appreciate you telling those stories. I always like hearing about that, and it's fun to look back at some of the great moments and fun to look at the current team right now. And it would be a huge help to us if you would let your friends, the folks that you're with on Facebook, or just the people that you maybe watch games with or talk Falcons football with, let them know that we're doing this every Monday and Friday at 1 p.m. We call it AJC Falcons News Now. It's sponsored by Miller Lite. Come in here in the comment section. As you can see, we're very interactive. I read a lot of comments. We talk back and forth. We just want this to be a casual show, right? This is not like TV where we pretend that we don't know that you're out there.
Just talking, right?
Yeah, we're just talking. Chuck and I, we're just loose, and we have a relaxed, good time, and want to invite you to be a part of it too. So make sure you tell folks about it and come on back and see us Monday at 1 p.m. and a couple other things there as well. Huge thanks to our friends at Miller Lite for making all of this possible. The official beer of the Atlanta Falcons, one of the best ways to support the show. Support our friends from Miller Lite there in that regard. And also check out the website, subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. Get the really cool Falcons cooler as a thank you for becoming a subscriber to the AJC. The AJC is a proud partner of the Atlanta Falcons. Y'all enjoy the Falcons and the Colts on Sunday, the rest of the NFL action, and be right back here with us Monday at 1 p.m. for AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Have a great weekend, everybody.